Hey guys, I just wanted to do kind of a brief follow-up video on the first Suikoden review that I did. It's just going to address a few frustrations with silent protagonists and kind of offer two examples in the game, one that's a great utilization of the practice and one that shows some potentially extreme weaknesses. Two disclaimers real quick. This video will have enormous spoilers. Part of the reason this even exists is because I couldn't gracefully go deeper in the review without using examples to pinpoint instances where the disconnection and narrative limitations significantly hurt major payoff moments, because they're just enormous spoilers. Another quick disclaimer, kind of piggybacking right off of this point, is that I don't despise silent protagonists in general. It's just that certain narratives, specifically much like in the case of the first Suikoden, can be very tricky to tell and land the emotional story beats necessary to not have major collapsing or disjointed or just unintentionally funny moments. And I'm more or less just kind of wanting to get more thoughts and opinions to help kind of clarify and define my own view on this. And also, what I'm about to say didn't ultimately upend my enjoyment or alter my opinion of the title in any major way. I love this game, and its story, despite this fact, still mostly lands. But there are two primary instances I want to discuss. Again, these are major spoilers, so please dip out now if you haven't experienced the game. The first is Tio and Tyr's clashing in Tio's death scene. It was an obvious and in some ways cliched inevitability, the dedicated, stubborn, and revered general taking on his own son, leading an army that seeks to liberate and improve the people's material existence and to root out the corruption in the empire, however immediately naive that might be. This scene, admittedly, wasn't nearly as bad as my second example because Tio proves himself to not only be a great man, understanding that Tyr believed deeply in his cause and didn't curse him or condemn him, but again, this was a one-sided conversation by design, and though I initially felt Tyr should have been more active in it, it actually is one of the better scenes in the game. It has lots of subtleties, Tyr's head dropping even, to kind of indicate grief. There's also a reason to believe that Tyr was simply too overcome to really even say much, and his father recognized this and reassured him of not only his love for him, but of his own path. This scene works for me. Yes, it still could have been enhanced with Tyr adding dialogue of some sort, and I still think in worlds where the protagonist has intimate, very close connections to those they're fighting against, it just seems wiser to not go with a silent one here. But being fair, I think this scene, and it's the reason I included this scene, is that it's a super emotional scene that I think works while still having a silent protagonist. It still gets the message across, it uses some physical gestures to show that, Tyr coming up to hold Tio, it works that way. Even though I will say it could have been enhanced, I didn't mind this scene. Now, the second scene could admittedly have a deeper explanation for the way it played out, considering that it's intended to be the player's reward for collecting all 108 characters. Perhaps this scene was a late addition, and my problems with it are short-sighted, but it nonetheless captures the extreme side of failures with a silent protagonist. Gremio, a character that had been by Tyr's side since Tyr was a child as a sort of stand-in parent, again, it's very evident the connection they have, even as Gremio's constant injection of himself into your party nearly every single time you depart starts to wear on the player. It's clear how far he'll go to protect his friend, even to sacrifice himself so that Tyr and the rest of the party will live. He clearly loves Tyr, so when he was miraculously brought back at the very end of the game, Tyr's complete lack of any reaction, either physical or verbal, really neutered the emotional weight of that scene. No hug, no explanation, nothing. Coupled with the fact that this is one of the rewards for collecting all 108 Stars of Destiny, with a post-game scene that also shows the two venturing out, which further drives home their connection, and it was a really underwhelming moment. There are others that were less impactful overall, but it just left me thinking how clumsy major beats can feel with a silent protagonist. It unintentionally depicts a callous or entirely aloof person when we're well aware that Tyr isn't. Even Murayama went away from it after the second Suikoden, only briefly elaborating that the decision was made in the first two games because it was a trend at the time. I'll also agree that yes, a player imprinting him or herself onto a character is helpful, but it can also muddy up rousing and inspirational scenes by snipping out the heft of a tightly constructed dialogic exchange between two inseparable friends. Tyr's only line is "victory" after Gremio's resurrection. having seemingly ignored his closest friend's return from the dead. It's kind of laughable, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I have unending respect for how this game approached very complicated material, but it felt comically disconnected. There are certainly titles that have made this work, but in a contained, hyper-focused setting that sees son against father and so many close relationships severed, I don't think it hits like it should in a few scenes where Tyr needed to show more than a few gestures. Really, that's about all I have. I just want to know what you guys think. I'm really looking for different opinions, different takes. I understand the purpose of a silent protagonist, but I'm just not sure I'm the biggest fan of it. What implementations of it are you guys most impressed with in the genre? I know this was a trend, so I don't want this video to come off as being really nitpicky or, you know, just kind of picking on Murayama or the decision here. I just wanted to pinpoint areas where, to me, it just really falls flat. Also, I know that this was overall just very short, but I just wanted to expound on a brief point I made in the review and get some feedback. I did kind of struggle with it a bit, to be honest. Also, I have a Discord now if you're interested in that sort of thing, and I've also just started a Patreon if you feel so inclined. It'd be greatly appreciated. Both of those links will be in the description. And as always, thanks for dropping by, guys.